Welcome to today's deep dive. We're going to be looking at something really important in applied behavior analysis.
Okay.
Conditioned reinforcement.
Sounds interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
Imagine like simple cues that can motivate behavior
Right.
in fascinating ways.
Yeah.
And that's really what conditioned reinforcement is all about.
I like it.
We're going to be exploring the core definition,
Okay.
how it shows up in everyday life,
Yeah.
and how we can use it for positive change.
Awesome.
So to get started, what exactly is conditioned reinforcement? We've got some great sources today.
Okay.
Excerpts from a textbook chapter on behavior analysis and learning.
Okay.
And we've got this really cool section on clicker training.
Nice.
So,
Well, I think in the simplest terms, it's when something strengthens a behavior
okay.
because it's been linked with something that's already rewarding.
Okay, so building on something that's already motivating. Like
Exactly.
when you're hungry, food is naturally rewarding.
Yeah, we call those primary reinforcers. Things
Mhm.
like food when you're hungry
Or water when we're thirsty.
Right.
They're just inherently reinforcing.
Okay.
But then there are other things that become reinforcing
Right.
because we learn to associate them with primary reinforcers.
Gotcha.
And that's where conditioned reinforcement comes in.
Okay, so the textbook uses this example of a baby
Mhm.
and a bottle.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
the baby naturally gets excited when it sees the bottle.
Right.
That's the primary reinforcer.
Exactly. But what's interesting is over time, that baby might start getting excited just hearing the bottle being prepared,
Oh, wow.
the clinking or the sound of the formula.
Interesting.
And those sounds initially meant nothing to the baby,
Right.
but they become conditioned reinforcers because they predict the arrival of the bottle.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like they're a cue that something good is coming.
Exactly.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. But it's all around us.
It really is.
Yeah.
Think about notification sounds on your phone.
Okay.
On their own, maybe a little annoying. But if you're expecting a really important message,
Right.
suddenly makes you jump.
Yeah.
Those sounds have become conditioned reinforcers because they're associated with something you find rewarding,
Totally.
getting that message.
It's true.
Yeah,
So conditioned reinforcement is way more common than we realize.
for sure.
What about some other examples?
Well, one that we see in the textbook is clicker training.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a perfect example of conditioned reinforcement in action.
Clicker training. I always thought it was kind of like magic.
Yeah.
You click this little plastic thing
Right.
and animals go nuts for it.
It's not magic, though.
Okay.
It's science.
Okay.
It's specifically conditioned reinforcement.
Right.
That clicker becomes a powerful tool
Mm-hmm.
because it's consistently paired with something the animal finds rewarding, like a treat.
Okay.
The click sound predicts the arrival of something desirable,
Right.
and that prediction is what makes it so effective.
So it's not just about the treat itself, it's about the association they make between the click and the treat.
The clicker becomes a signal that something good is coming.
Right.
And over time, that signal itself becomes reinforcing.
Okay.
And the cool thing is, this principle applies to humans, too.
I can see how that would be useful in therapy settings.
Mhm.
Like if we're using praise or positive feedback during a session.
Precisely.
Yeah.
A simple good job can be incredibly motivating because it signals to the client that they're on the right track.
Right.
And that more positive reinforcement, whatever that may be for that individual,
Mm-hmm.
is likely to follow.
It's like we're wired to respond to these cues that predict good things.
And this takes us to a really interesting example that they talk about in the textbook,
Okay.
golf instruction.
Okay.
They use a technique called backward chaining, which is a clever way to leverage conditioned reinforcement to make learning more effective.
Okay, how does that work?
Instead of starting with the hardest part of the golf swing,
Mm-hmm.
like the tee shot,
Right.
they actually start with the final putt, and they work backwards,
Interesting.
adding complexity with each step.
So you're starting with what's closest to the reward,
Exactly.
sinking the putt.
That's right.
Okay.
And by starting with success and then gradually adding complexity,
Okay.
each step becomes reinforcing because it brings the learner closer to the ultimate goal
Gotcha.
of completing the entire swing.
So it's like you break it down into these smaller steps.
Yeah.
And each step is like a little victory.
Exactly. And those little bursts of reinforcement,
Mm-hmm.
they can really keep someone motivated
Right.
and engaged in learning.
It's amazing what we can learn from golf.
I know, right?
But are there things that can make conditioned reinforcement more or less effective?
Absolutely. One of the biggest factors is consistency.
Okay.
The more often that conditioned reinforcer
Mm-hmm.
is paired with that primary reinforcer, the stronger the effect becomes.
That seems pretty intuitive.
Yeah.
The more reliably that click predicts a treat,
Right.
the more powerful that click's going to be.
Right.
Exactly, and it's something that's really well supported by research
Mhm.
in learning and behavior.
Yeah.
There's this model in classical conditioning
Okay.
called the Rescorla-Wagner model.
Hmm.
And it basically says that the strength of an association
Okay.
grows with each repeated pairing.
Okay, so consistency is key.
Yes.
What else can impact how well-conditioned reinforcement works?
Well, here's something that might surprise you.
Okay.
Sometimes a little bit of unpredictability
Right.
can make it even more effective.
So like throwing in a curveball is good.
Precisely. Think about something like slot machines.
Okay.
You never know when you're going to win.
Right?
And that unpredictability
Hmm.
is part of what makes them so addictive.
That's a great point. It's like the surprise
Mm-hmm.
makes the reward even more exciting.
And this ties into another important factor.
Okay.
The delay
Okay.
between the conditioned reinforcer and the primary reinforcer.
Right.
The shorter that delay, the stronger the association tends to be.
So timing matters.
It does.
The closer the reward,
Yes.
the stronger that connection.
It's all about creating a clear link
Okay.
between the cue and the reward.
Mm-hmm.
And the closer those two things are in time, the easier it is for our brains to make that connection.
This all makes me think about how we approach our own goals.
Yeah.
Maybe we could all benefit from celebrating those smaller wins.
That's a fantastic insight.
Yeah.
It's those smaller reinforcers
Mm-hmm.
that provide the fuel to keep us going.
Right, especially for long-term goals.
Especially for long-term goals.
So speaking of motivation,
Yes.
one of our sources talks about this thing called the good news bias.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
I have. It's the idea that we're more drawn to information that's associated with good news,
Okay.
even when good and bad news might be equally informative.
So we're naturally drawn to the positive.
It seems so.
Interesting.
The text uses this example of students checking their grades. Students who think they did well,
Mm-hmm.
eager to see their scores,
Right.
but students who are expecting a bad grade,
Yeah.
they might put off looking at their scores.
Oh, that's so true.
Even though the information is equally important.
It's so much easier to face good news than bad news.
And this bias can have real implications
Yeah.
for motivation and behavior change.
Okay.
If we can frame things in a way that emphasizes the positive,
Mhm.
highlight the progress,
Right.
we can tap into that inclination towards good news
Right.
and make change more appealing.
I see how that would be useful,
Yeah.
especially in ABA therapy,
Mm-hmm.
finding ways to keep clients engaged.
Precisely. It's about making those small wins feel meaningful
Yeah.
and using those positive experiences to fuel continued progress.
And that brings us to another concept,
Okay.
generalized conditioned reinforcement.
Yes.
What is that?
Think about money.
Okay.
Money in and of itself isn't inherently rewarding.
Right.
It's just paper or metal.
Yeah. But it becomes incredibly powerful because it can be exchanged
Okay.
for so many things that we find rewarding.
You're right.
Food, clothes, entertainment experiences.
Yeah, it's like a universal key that unlocks all these reinforcers.
Exactly. And that's what makes it a generalized conditioned reinforcer.
Okay.
It's associated with so many different primary reinforcers
Right.
that it takes on this powerful reinforcing value.
Wow, this is giving me a whole new appreciation for motivation.
Motivation is fascinating.
Yeah.
And understanding how reinforcement works
Mm-hmm.
is key to unlocking it.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask about token economies.
Okay?
Our source material mentions this
Yes.
as a way to put conditioned reinforcement into practice.
Token economies are structured systems
Okay.
where tokens are used as generalized conditioned reinforcers.
Okay.
They're often used in schools, homes, workplaces.
So it's like creating a mini economy.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you earn tokens for behaviors.
Right.
And you can exchange them. That's right. The tokens themselves
Yeah.
don't have any inherent value.
Right.
But they become valuable because they can be traded for things that people want.
What are some examples of how token economies are used?
One really interesting example
Okay.
is a study by Schaefer and Martin from 1966.
Mm-hmm.
They used a token economy to increase engagement
Okay.
in patients with schizophrenia.
Wow.
The tokens could be earned for participating in activities and then exchanged for snacks, cigarettes, or privileges.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So even for people who struggle with motivation,
Yeah,
this can help.
exactly. By providing clear expectations,
Okay.
consistent rewards, and a way to track progress,
Mm-hmm.
token economies can help individuals learn new skills,
Right.
engage in positive behaviors,
Okay.
and really take ownership
Right.
of their growth.
It's like creating a roadmap
Yeah.
with clear steps and rewards.
Exactly.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening. I feel like I have this whole new understanding of reinforcement
Good.
and how it can be used to create positive change.
It really is a powerful tool.
Absolutely.
We've only just scratched the surface. But hopefully you can see
Yeah,
how pervasive it is in our lives
it's true.
and how understanding its principles can enhance our work.
For sure, it's like we've uncovered this hidden language of motivation.
Exactly.
And the more fluent we are,
Yeah.
the more effective we can be.
Right.
Yeah, it really is amazing how these simple associations can have such a big impact on our behavior.
It really speaks to the power of learning
Yeah.
and how our experiences shape who we are and how we interact with the world.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about,
Good.
both professionally and personally.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to add about conditioned reinforcement?
One of the most important things to remember, I think, is that it's a dynamic process.
Okay.
The associations that we form aren't set in stone. They can change over time
Interesting.
based on our experiences.
So it's not just about understanding how those associations are formed, but also that they can be modified,
Exactly.
even reversed.
If needed.
Okay.
And that's where the real power of applied behavior analysis comes in.
Okay.
By understanding the principles of reinforcement, we can help individuals learn new skills,
Right.
change unwanted behaviors,
Okay.
and live better lives.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
We all have the capacity for growth and change, and with the power of learning, we can create positive transformations
Absolutely.
in ourselves and others.
And remember, conditioned reinforcement is happening all around us,
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
So as you go about your day, pay attention to the cues
Okay.
that influence behavior,
Right.
yours and others.
Interesting.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
I like that. That's a great challenge for us all. To be more mindful of how our environment shapes our actions
Right.
and use that knowledge to create better interactions.
Well said. It's been a pleasure diving into this with you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive
You're welcome.
into conditioned reinforcement.
My pleasure.
I hope our listeners found it as insightful as I did.
Me too.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep applying these principles to make a difference.